few people are coming.
Yes.
I'm sure they are.
Yes.
All right. I see my sister Tamara McNair Hicks.
Hello,
God bless you.
beautiful.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. I see a few people. Isaac Watson, Kim Capes. God bless you. Listen, I had an interesting conversation here. My wife is here, of course, and two of our spiritual daughters. I wanted to hear their perspective. We did a leadership on the lake this morning with just with a couple of the sons. A couple of them aren't here. I got to make sure I say that because a couple of them was like, Apostle, you didn't mention us. It's a problem. Don't make me get on the plane and come down. So this is not our normal time. But I wanted to answer some of the questions that we asked this morning to the guys, and I wanted some of the wives to answer some of these questions because I think that their perspective is just as important as what the men had to say. And so for those of you that are potentially in ministry, you are planning to go into ministry, I think some of the questions that I asked the guys this morning are now something that, because, it's something I think is interesting, which is, and of course, Bishop Keller is right over to my left. And I think Pastor Jermaine is somewhere with Gio. But as I thought about it, I said, I want to hear what y'all got to say. Because sometimes I was talking the subject this morning was, you didn't miss it. Don't ignore the warning signs.
Right.
And so I got in trouble when I first started because, hey, man, Marcus Rivers Worship, bless you, man. Love you, Prophet. I got in trouble because sometimes I didn't listen to my wife. And sometimes y'all have a different perspective. I got in trouble because I didn't listen to my wife. Now, I want to also tell y'all something I think is very interesting, too, because one of the other factors that I looked at this morning was my wife told you guys something that I thought was very interesting. And I want you to remember what you told them. And then I want you to tell how it affected your thought about being a pastor's wife. And sometimes, especially now, it's one thing being a regular pastor's wife. Then it's another thing being an apostle's wife, because we always on a crusade. We always like trying to go somewhere. We always gonna go save somebody or go fix something or go do something else. And sometimes y'all like, oh my God. I mean, like, can we do one thing first or another thing first? And Shalonda looking like, man, listen, y'all ain't finna kill me around here. So I wanted to kind of talk to them about some of those thoughts. Thank you for sharing, those who have shared. Thank you for coming on. One of the questions that I talked about this morning was, and I had to give an honest assessment, there was a time when you said you saw something, I ignored the warning sign. It cost us painfully because I forgot that that you were giving to me as a helpmeet, right? Right. You always talk about how the helpmeet, your job as a rib is to protect which part of the body?
The vital organs, and especially the heart. And so the heart is very intricate, very valuable, of course, in our lives. It is the central part of who we are. It really causes blood and nutrients and oxygen and all those things to flow to every area of the body. And so we, as the rib, has been strategically placed to guard our husband's heart, to be able to guard against pain, guard against things that attack him, because whenever anything enters into our body, any type of germ, bacteria, any of those things, its ultimate job is to destroy the vital organs. So that's what we've been called to do. We've been called to be a helpmeet. We've been called to help them to meet what God has called them to do. And so we have a very intricate part, a very valuable part, a very strategic part. And as a woman, we have the ability to really cause our husbands to be successful, or we can cause them to fail based on how we support them or not support them, how we submit or not submit to them. And so one of the things that I was saying...
That word, that's a dirty word.
Yes.
That S word is a dirty word.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because some people don't want to hear, and then some people abuse that. Let me say that too.
Sure.
Sometimes it's been abused. Because you're not necessarily a doormat to be walked on. You're not behind us to be subservient.
Hey, King Solomon.
But you actually are beside us to be able to stand with us and unite with us, to be a helpmeet to help us, because there's some stuff we just can't do without y'all.
Absolutely.
Can I be honest?
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And so God gives, our husbands a major part of the vision. He gives them the most of the responsibility. And so one of the things that I realized my call on the call of God on my life, as a pastor, as a leader, as a prophet, I understand that. And sometimes we in our own dimension, and I really feel that all women basically are prophets. You have a prophetic dimension. You're able to discern. You have keen discernment. That's just how God created us, to be able to discern what is good and what is not good, especially when it pertains to our spouses and it pertains to our families. And so we begin to guard, we begin to shamar, we begin to protect those different entities. Why? Because they're very valuable to us, and of course they're valuable to God. And so even as a wife, one of the things in the part of submitting, because I had been unmarried for several years, and so God, we met 2 months later. As you know our story, we got married after 2 months, and so it was a change. It was I had to be transformed. I had to really allow God to transform my mind and how I looked at things and how I viewed things, and then allowed Him to lead me as my husband and also as my pastor. And so I have to a lot of times really look at the two differently, because even though he is still LaJun Cole, the husband, he's also LaJun Cole, the apostle. And so I have to be able to understand those different entities, and understand also that sometimes what God gives to him, he may not give to me. And I'm the wife, but God may not give it to me. And so what I am consistently learning to do as a wife and as a helpmeet is to surrender my will and my emotions to what He has said. Because in submitting, it means I get low enough and I get silent enough so that He can hear clearly from God. Because as women, we sometimes, of course, and it's just who we are, we want to be able to say, okay, no, you need to see it from my perspective. And so if we're always fighting against what we feel that, what our husbands feel that God is telling them to do, then the frustration comes because they can't hear from God when they're always listening to us.
Now, let me say something before. I want y'all to jump in, because
Yes.
I see that look on Brittany's face. Now, this is, of course, Pastor Brittany McNeil. Her and her husband pastor a phenomenal church in right outside of Cleveland, Ohio, called Connection Church, and it's in Medina, Ohio. And I see Allison. Allison's, look, man, y'all doing
Absolutely.
all this
Submission
FaceTime.
is key.
And I ain't on here. And I know LaTanya's on here
that's
somewhere. And they have the Star Wars have a phenomenal church in Tallahassee, Florida, and then you and your husband have a phenomenal church in Pell City, Alabama, which is right outside of Birmingham. So both churches are about 20 miles outside of one of the major cities, and so that's amazing. So I was sitting up and I was thinking about how help me out. I was thinking about what was I getting ready to say? I was thinking about. Lord, it just because let me tell y'all what happened. My wife can't be still most times, and so when we're doing stuff and she move, man, let me tell you something, my whole equilibrium be thrown off. So she'll start moving papers, and I'm like, baby, don't move the papers, leave the papers alone. And so I was just getting ready to say something. Tell me what you think about that whole process, Brittany, as we look at, as it pertains to what you thought about when she said that this morning.
I thought it was profound, because I believe I grew up in a family that you submit. That the husband is the head, the wife submits, the husband comes first, and then the children. But then I was in a 7-year relationship where I took those principles of marriage and I applied it to that. And I was submitting, but that submission was then abused. And so because it was abused, when I got married, it made it harder for me to submit to my husband, who is now the head, who was the one I was supposed to submit to. And right now we're in a walk of pastoring a church, and I know that I have to have moments where I am silent. But then I also have to have moments where I speak and I share and I support him, even when I do not agree where we're walking. And so he is a big visionary. He's a person that has this massive plan, and I don't see all the parts of his plan. It's very intricate. And sometimes all I could do is just say, yes, I support you. And that's my version of submission, because if I really start going...
Is that fearful sometimes, though?
That is. It's scary, because I'm like, I don't see where that money is coming from. Do you see where we live? Do you see this and this? And he's like, but do you understand this vision? And he'll have it all on the paper, and I'm just like, okay, well, let's do this. And that's scary, but I know that he hears from God, and so I could trust where he's taking us.
Right.
Wow,
and one of the things that I'm learning, and I say I'm learning because it is an ongoing process, and we continue to grow and continue to learn based on our experience and what we're able to endure and go through. And so even when it is clear that perhaps women, we are right, when it's very clear that we're right, I'm having to...
Amen.
I'm having to pray and allow God to, because He has the responsibility to cover us, to lead us, to do all of those great things. And so if He misses it, that's between Him and God. And so we have to be in the place that we're able to pray them through that process, that God would open up the eyes of their understanding, so that they will understand and know whether it's the right time or not, whether it's of God or not. But it's not our job to fuss. It is not our job to always fuss and always belittle their ideas and what they feel that God has told them. Because what happens is, and the thing that we don't want to do, we don't want to shut our husbands down. Right. Because when we shut our husbands down, it opens the door for other things.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
And it's not always just, an extramarital affair. It could be so many other things that we open the doors to that we don't even realize we've opened the door to.
That's powerful, though. That's really powerful. And I think sometimes we have men's ministry and women's ministry, but I think sometimes the women, because you guys are pastors, there are things that you need to tell husbands, and sometimes the wives need to tell. I mean, there needs to be that mothering factor where you guys come in and share some of those things, to tell people different parts about that thing that'll keep stuff fresh in the marriage, and especially when you're doing ministry together, business together, because you guys do that. You guys do ministry together, business together. You do all those different factors together, and it's very important. Very important. What do you think about that, Shalonda?
I think I was just thinking about in raising our children. Even the plans that we may have for them, we may not necessarily see the same result, but we just have to come together and make that decision. And me, with the personality that I have, God had to convict me concerning what I speak on and what I say, because 5 years ago, if I would have spoke my opinion, we may not be in the place we are now, because of fear that has set up in me about, starting a ministry, and you really want to do this, you really want to, go to a place of income, to a place where you're not even sure about income. And so, sometimes, and that was a time, is that I just felt like I needed to love him and say, I trust God in you. So if this is where you want to go, if this is what God is saying to it, then I just, support you. And even when Prophetess was saying some things this morning, even though I'm very opinionated, it's not that my opinion...
Hold on, you didn't say that, did you? Hold on, Bishop Keller, would you agree? Would you say that she sometimes has something to say about stuff?
All the
right,
time.
okay.
I am very opinionated, and
No.
it's not, yes, you didn't know that. It's not that my opinion doesn't count, but my opinion is not always necessary, because sometimes the Bible says a woman builds her house, and so I can tear my house down with my opinions, and they may not necessarily be wrong, but they're not always meant to be shared. So sometimes I take my opinion to the altar and leave it there, and I don't bring it back up, because even in ministry and marriage, we have to have some failures so that we can grow from that. So that's my thing. And so I was even convicted this morning, like maybe my opinion is just my opinion because a lack of faith or a lack of fear, even though I know, this is what you need to grow. Maybe it's fear speaking. Maybe it's not even my opinion. It's just fear talking.
Wow.
That's not even the way I feel, because in reality, this needs to happen. So that fear begins to speak out. And then when she came back and preached to us, gave us a mini sermon on submission. I'm like, you know what, Lord, that wasn't even you talking. That was just fear speaking. Fear speaks out, and you don't want to say 5 years from now we in the same spot we were because my opinion went so loud in the atmosphere that he couldn't even follow God, and now I've messed up the whole thing. So I don't want that on me. So I'm like, oh, I changed my tune. Yes.
Because the word submission, as a noun, it says the action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will or authority of another person. And so submission is not being forced into it, but you're
and it doesn't
yielding.
mean you're weak.
Right. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It's that you're yielding to what is in the authority at that moment. You're yielding to that. You're surrendering to that. And you're saying, and one of the things that I'm continuously learning is I'm not just surrendering to him. I'm surrendering to God, because God has placed him in authority to cover me, to support me, to build me up as my husband and as my leader. And so ultimately I'm surrendering to God. And so he's a byproduct of that. When he says, God says this, that, and the other, I'm not the one that needs to say, no, God didn't tell you that. So I surrender and I submit to that. And so if it's not God, God is gonna make it known. And if it is God, everybody's gonna know that it is God. And so I've seen that. I've seen the results of that, the visions and so forth that that God gives my husband sometimes are so out of the box. It is just amazing. As I tell people, I live with a genius. I mean, he is an idea factory. He, just amazing.
He want to go to the store, y'all.
I do, but he really is. He really is.
God.
And so I remember one time I really felt really, really bad, and I think this really opened up my eyes when there was a thought that he had, an idea that he had. And so I was quick to just come back with something, whatever it was, but it was in opposition of what he was saying and wanted to get across. And he said, you know what, you've really put my fire out. He said, you have put my fire out, and I don't even want to dream anymore. And I was like, wow. And that's when I realized I have more power, and we as women have more power than we realize. That we can, depending on what we want to answer, that's who we speak to. Because in all of us and in every man, there is a fool and there is a king. And so if you want the king to arise, that's who you have to address, the king. And so we have to understand what our role and responsibility is, to guard, to protect, to cover, even as they have been placed in authority to guard and to lead us in the way that they feel that God is calling them to lead.
Let me give you
not always easy.
Right.
It's
let me
not
give you
always easy.
A case in point. Let me give you 2 cases in point. One time, do you remember the time you got the call? Somebody wanted you to come preach. You remember that? And I didn't particularly like the scenario because I didn't like how it was done. So I said, baby, I don't think you need to go to that. And let me tell y'all something. It was something that tore me up inside. I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't go to sleep. I'm talking about all night long. I was up. God tore my butt up. And after that, I woke up this morning and said, well, baby, if you want to go, you can go. The Lord said you can go. Because see, what I learned how to do is, I learned that this girl can pray. And so even if I didn't agree with something, if God said it, I need to listen to it. Then there was another situation where she told me, she said, baby, I don't think, and you know what we do as men, as pastors, we be like, oh, baby, the Lord is, it's going to be all right. She said, it ain't going to be all right. I'm telling you, it's not going to be all right. I'm telling you, it's not going to be all right. And so I'd be like, no, it's going to be all right. Everything is going to, she said, I'm telling you, it's not going to be good. I'm telling you, it's not going to be good. And I'm telling you, if I had listened to her, I would have been a lot further along. And so I think that God puts us both in each other's life to be able to, to really be able to work through those processes together and be able to collaborate. We just had a really great leadership session and really just dealing with some stuff and dealing with some processes, procedures, and other stuff that we were looking at. And so as a result, you guys had some things that you were concerned about. And so as we looked at the concerns, it was good for collaboration because it's important for us to know where you're concerned or what you're thinking about or what's going on in your mind. And then at the same time, then we came back around and we were all able to collaborate to be able to come up with solutions that's going to benefit everybody. Because the reality is none of us have all the answers. The church was never meant to have been a one-man or one-woman show. It was always meant to have been collaborative.
Yes.
So here's a couple of questions that I asked the guys. I want to ask you guys if I can get to it. And I told them they can be transparent. This is going to be a challenge because sometimes
Help me,
the wives have some stuff to say, man, and we be in trouble. So let me ask you this question.
One last thing, submission doesn't mean substandard. And so your opinions are not substandard. It is not less than. And you are valuable as a woman of God. You are valuable as a wife and as a leader. And so we sometimes have to yield our thoughts and opinions and be submitted unto those that are in authority over us as our husbands.
Wow.
As they represent Christ.
Now you spent how many years in the military? 4 years. You've been in corporate America for how long?
About 15, 16.
15, 16 years. You do some high-level executive work in corporate America, military, and then you have you were a nurse for 20-something years. You have an undergraduate in leadership, minor in public administration. Then you have a one class from your capstone from having your master's of business administration with a concentration in organizational leadership. So you guys really know something about leadership. You've been pastoring your churches. You guys just took over a phenomenal church, but you've been in ministry for some time. You've been in ministry 20, 25 years or more. You're only 25 years old, so it's
right.
Born
in it.
And then you guys have had your church in the Pell City
God
area for over
fetus.
5 years. So you guys have been doing a phenomenal job. So I'm asking them some experience questions as pastors' wives about the questions that I asked the. So one of the things that we talk about is in leadership. I talked about the question of confronting substandard behavior or performance isn't easy, but it's necessary. And then I said, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. It won't get better with time. And then I said, you can't pray it away when it pertains to leadership. You got to address it.
Yes.
Now, you guys are intercessors. Y'all are prophets. Y'all are intercessors. Y'all pray all day, all night. But there is still a time when you need to address things in leadership and not just pray about it. Talk to me about that. What do you think about that? Uh-oh. Well, they was quiet too. When they all get quiet, that means it's getting ready to be some trouble, y'all.
Okay. With my personality, of course, we can always lead by our personality. But I'm the type, when God shows me something, that something is going on or a person is operating in a particular way, when God says it is what it is, it is what it is. So I'm not going to try to change it. I'm not going to try to change the person. And you know what I'm saying? I want to address it, and I want to get that out as soon as possible, because I understand the potential of what could happen to the entire organization. For me, I'm always looking at the totality of the ministry with that. And so with me, I'm just like, deal with it, let it be gone. So my husband, you know, he has that grace and he has that mercy gift. You know, he is big, you know, and I definitely love people. I really do. But when I see it and when God shows it to me, that's it. That's the bottom
black and white.
That's the bottom line for me. Absolutely. Because God already knows that they're not going to change.
Wow.
God already knows when God keeps dealing with me about a situation, and there are times when God has, because see, I'm not always the one. I want to see the best in other people. I want to see the good and not the bad. But God is saying, if you don't deal with the bad, then it's gonna kill the whole organization. And so what happens with me, and what I've experienced in the past, where God would not let me sleep, he said, no, you're not gonna sleep until you deal with it. You're not gonna sleep. I'm showing you this. I'm showing you the spirit that's behind it, how it's operating. It's violent. One particular situation was so nasty. I didn't understand the fullness of what was going on, but God allowed me to feel it. It was so violent, and God allowed it to I felt it in my body. It was so violent and so nasty. And so, you know, it just, you have to deal with certain things that sometimes you're not even wanting to deal with, and even based on your personality. So God will cause us to grow quickly in ministry as wives, as leaders. We will begin to grow.
Wow. What do you guys think about that?
That's good. I mean, I did wedding and event planning for several years, and the wedding planning industry is very cutthroat. So I'm sweet and I'm teeny, but when it came to weddings, get out my way, I'm going to get it done. So it's a no-nonsense mentality. And so I took that mentality and I went into the church and it's like, okay, we're coordinating the service. It's going to be this way. It starts at 10:08. So you need to be at lights at 10:03. And this needs to happen at 10:05. And so I was very rigid. And so I'm learning how to lead with grace. Because if you don't, you're only going to duplicate what you don't want. And so we want to duplicate leaders that can also lead with grace, and that can also be a great example, and that can also be able to do the processes and really show how it's done without attacking, without bringing people down. But much like cancer, if you don't remove it, it's going to keep spreading. So if there is someone that's not fitting within the culture, that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you cannot leave them there, because they're only going to eventually have someone under them, and they're going to teach them the same bad habits. And eventually you're not going to be able to break it. You're going to have to recreate a whole entire ministry arm or do something really drastic to change the damage that's been done. So you have to confront those issues head on. Now, for me, that's not my graced area. And so I just pass those beautiful people and those beautiful souls right along to my husband, that pastor, and he is there to care for the people, and I'm there to support him from afar. And I am thankful. I am thankful for that.
That is so funny. You know, it's funny because I listened to, we were talking, and you know, sometimes, you know, when you're behind the scenes and you're talking with each other and you're building and you're dealing with different things, it's funny because they found out that they have a lot of the same similarities in how they think. I remember one day I went into my wife and I was really, it was one of those tough days. Now, this isn't lately. This was a few years ago.
Like 5 years ago.
About 5 years ago. And so I went into my wife and I said, well, this ain't going right, and that's not going right, and that's not going right. And so the prophet came out and she said, well, shut it down. And I'm sitting here like, God, I can't go back to her and talk to her about it, because she like, shut it down. She gonna shut it down. She gonna get them up out of there. I was like, baby, I was just saying, that's all you gotta say is shut it down. You don't have no other answers. And she was like, no, shut it down. Because if that's all you gonna do is complain about what the people ain't doing and this and that, just shut it down. Because this thing just ain't working. Because I don't want to hear it no more. If you ain't gonna do something about it, don't say. And I'm like, okay, praise the Lord. And so I kind of shrunk down. Some of y'all, that brothers, y'all know, listen, let me tell you something. And you know, she was being honest, because again, she wants to protect my heart, and she was tired of seeing my heart being walked on. And so she said, man, listen, just shut that down and leave that alone. What do you think about that?
I was thinking about, you know, we as leaders, we don't need to reward bad behavior. We need to address it, because you don't want an infection spreading, and then you don't want to develop the Peter principle, where somebody is not, you're rewarding bad behavior, but you're not giving them the tools to make them a better leader. You're promoting them instead of saying, okay, you know, maybe you need to sit out, maybe you need to do this so we can build you up as a leader, and maybe come back at a later time when you're committed to following through on your assignment. So that's my thing, is that we don't become so much, I guess, in just being so sweet all the time, that we reward bad behavior, and in turn promote. You're promoting somebody to a different position because they're not functioning well in that position, and you end up doing the Peter principle, and you've given them a promotion, and you're starting the same problem over again, only in another area.
Wow.
So, wow.
That's good. That's really good. That's right, leadership.
There.
Those are some good leadership, and that's in the corporate environment. That's in any environment that you're dealing with, not just church. Let me ask y'all this next question. Here's a good one. I gave the analogy. Do you remember the time? Okay, check this out, y'all. You remember the time when we were riding down the street? We were at 30th and Bush, and the car was almost ready to run out of gas, and I was the light was taking too long. And you were like, if this car runs out of gas, I am not going to get out and help you push. It's hot out here today. You should have put some gas in this car. Oh, yes. And so I asked the question this morning, how do you know if the people that are with you are actually for you on your team? Because y'all sometimes have a sense of discernment that says, baby, that one right there. Now that look you just gave me, Shalonda, that look was priceless. Look, if I could have took a picture of that girl, I could have sold it for $1 million.
Yes.
Bishop, come say hello to him, so at least they can see your face. She won't. She didn't want to be on it.
Oh, okay.
So that's the husband of one wife. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
We talked about that this morning too. It was funny. We were talking about it. I want y'all to answer that. We talked about. We were laughing about the thing with Abraham and Sarah, and how sometimes you know, the wife gives the wrong answer or gives him this wrong alternative. And I was like, well, see, now Sarah told Abraham to go get with Hagar. And y'all see how you see that?
Hey, he didn't wait in the next verse. He was
Right?
there.
he didn't have no problem.
He was like, okay.
Oh, God.
The next verse, he was
Hey.
like, whoa.
Them sisters was like, we ain't going. Because you from like Philly or Jersey. Where you from?
Camden, New Jersey.
Camden, New
He had a
Jersey.
heart issue.
You were not going. They don't do that right.
No.
No, you ain't. Y'all, you just see that look? No. We ain't having it. Okay, so what do y'all think about that? What do you think about how you know that the people are with you on your team are really for you, and if they're really assigned to you, versus, as we talked about this morning, sometimes when you first starting a church, you really just kind of take what you can get, but sometimes that causes a problem because you've
I'd rather not have nobody.
Right.
Have the wrong person.
Right.
Okay, now break that down. Come on, talk to us.
Because I think, sometimes people may have a heart, in a sense, to do it or to say, I'll just put it this way, they say they want to help. They say they want to be a part. They say they want to be committed. They say they want you to be their spiritual leaders. This is what they say. And so sometimes they will finagle their way into you believing them. And so you give them the benefit of the doubt of saying, okay, this is what you want to do. And I thank you so much for your willingness to help and support. But you ultimately will see their motive. You will see the reason behind why they said what they said. Because if it's all about them, it will certainly show. They will not be able to cover it up for long because it's going to come forth. And you have to make the decision, because one thing I know about God, He will let you know. God will let you know if this person is really for you and for the organization, for the ministry or not. And sometimes we can have blinders on and try to overlook those things, but I don't care what happens or how much you believe in that person or how much you want to believe in them, that they're going to change and they're going to be who they say they're going to be. But when it comes out, they are who they are, and it is what it is. Yeah.
You know, one of the books that we had to read as a family of churches, just in our whole leadership pattern as we've been developing some of this stuff behind the scenes, was The Ideal Team Player. So we read it in our church in Tampa. You guys read it, and then y'all looked at it through your leadership team lens. And you remember, well, I don't want to say that. I don't know if I want to say that on camera. But I asked y'all, some of y'all, I said...
Because most people are more concerned about what the church can do for them and how it promotes them than how they can promote the vision and the mission of the organization that they're a part of.
So I asked the question, are they hungry for themselves or for the team?
Right.
And so
because
asked,
one thing I know, if you're hungry for the team, God will always promote you.
Wow.
If you're faithful in one area and committed, as the word of God says, because I don't care who you are, you cannot go past the word. If God says, I will promote you, if you're faithful and committed over another man's, then He said, I will make you ruler over much. But we seek for the ruler over much first.
Wow. That's good.
And not the little.
Let me say something about that was really funny. One day we were having a meeting. I won't say whose church. I won't say that. But we had a meeting, and I asked the question after we read the book, Ideal Team Player. I said, after you survey your team, do you feel like everybody on your team is the ideal team player? And so before we read the book, some people were like, yeah, all my people on my team are real ideal team players. And then we came back and they were like, there's a couple of them that ain't ideal team players. Once they read the book and they were like, some of the people are not ideal team players, because they understood. And what I was trying to stop you guys from experiencing the heartache that comes from having potentially people on your team and they're with you 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and then after 6 years, it manifests that they may not necessarily be on the team for the team, and then you're like, wow, it hurts.
Right.
You know?
That's right, Barbara. Absolutely.
Oh, what did she say?
She said, give them time and they will show themselves.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know what? I don't think it necessarily takes that long for them to reveal who they are. Sometimes it takes that long for us to accept who they are.
Wow.
Right.
It
know,
comes out pretty quick.
I had to pray one time. Remember I told you there was a situation that went on a few years back. I remember walking up the stairs and crying and praying. I said, Lord, take the soul tie away with me for anybody that's in my organization or that's in my life. Take that soul tie from me to people, places, and things that are not assigned to me, or that cannot go to where you're taking me to. Because what happened is, I would find myself being that graceful person, loving person, pastoral person who loved people, but I was a great pastor, but a terrible leader. So I could bandage the sheep, I could change their pamper, I could go through all those processes, but I would not lead them well in saying, you don't fit right there. You're not in operation with the right culture at this time. No, you can't do that. That's just not going to work. And so what do you guys think about that? Knowing who's with you versus who is, what am I trying to say? Knowing who's with you versus for themselves. I was laughing because when I looked at the messages, let me tell y'all something, something funny. At my house, every now and then, there is something that shows up at the door from something that's called Amazon. And so I'm looking at the notifications.
My Amazon folks.
And the notification said, your package was successfully delivered. And so we always get these packages at the door. I don't be knowing about these packages, but I guess I don't have to know nothing about the packages. If she happy, I'm happy. So anyway, and see all the sisters to my right here. Well, I got to pray for y'all.
Yes.
Y'all got to get delivered from the Amazon spirit. No, I'm just messing with y'all. Okay, what were you gonna say?
They show up. I mean, they show up on time. They show up early. They are so plugged into what the vision is that they could do it without us asking. They take lead on things, and they're like, I'm not just taking lead, but here's something that we've talked about. Here's a layout, and here's how we're going to actually make it happen. And then they get other people on board without us even having to say, here, you go do this, 1, 2, 3. They come with it, and then they even make sure that it's still in line with the vision. They don't just run with it and do whatever they want. And then when the going gets tough, they're still there.
Right.
Wow.
And that makes a big difference because we're praying for lots of people and we're pouring out to everyone. But it's amazing when they start to pour back into you. And they say, okay, let me, watch Geo. That makes a big impact because now we get to have a date night. They're really sowing into not just the vision of the church, but into our lives so that we could continue to lead them and carry on the vision and be an actual collective family. And it does not take long at all for you to see the ones that kind of just sit around, or they say I'm gonna be there, and then excuse after excuse, or they show up late, or they don't show up at all, and eventually you just feel the disconnect. Like it's so clear. And like Prophet said, it's clear from the beginning, but it's, do we accept it? And how long do we allow ourselves to get stuck in a place we're not supposed to be because we don't want to accept or lose people on the team because we have this massive vision and we don't want to lose sight of where we're going, so we're holding on to everyone. You're not going to get there because everyone's not meant to go with you and go up to the next level. And so really seeing it, accepting it, and then removing those people and knowing that God's going to replace those people. But they show up. They show up on time. They show up early. They're fully committed. They are sowing financially. They're just giving 100% as if it was their own baby because they believe in what's happening and how it's going to impact others.
Because if the vision they say that God has given them is in conflict with the vision of the church and what God has called the body to do, they're operating in division.
Yes.
So conflict or competition, or what's another word you could say? So if the vision that somebody else has for a ministry is, and let me say that, I want you to answer that question. Do you remember when we first moved in? We moved into the building. And so when we first moved in, remember, people because we didn't really have an idea of how we wanted to decorate, people started bringing all kinds of stuff. So somebody brought this color clock and that color clock, and then they had this kind of this thing, and then somebody brought this thing from their house that they didn't want. And so I'm sitting there like, oh my God, what we're gonna have? It's gonna be like the Junkyard Church, or like
Fred Sanford.
Or Fred Sanford Church, Fred Sanford Church Incorporated. Because I'm telling you, it was amazing. And so people would do the same thing. If you don't tell them what the vision is, eventually they will create their own vision.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah. So what are some things when you look at people to know whether or not people are with you and for you, what do you add to what they've said?
God always gives you a discerning spirit. I think it was Maya Angelou who said, when people show you who they are, believe them. I think sometimes when you're in a position where you love people hard, sometimes we can't see the ugly side of them. And then my thing is that sometimes you can actually have super sold out people who are super dedicated, and you think they're in with you for the long haul, and one little bug gets in their ear, and sometimes you find out who they are when you disagree with them. And God brings that
part.
out. Yes, you find out who they are as soon as you disagree with them, as soon as you don't like their idea. That's when you find out who they are, and you're like, oh my God, but I thought you were going to be with us to the end. But as soon as, and sometimes their motive is, if I get in here, if I serve, if I do this or I do that, then I can really pull my agenda out. And as soon as you don't agree with their flesh-made agenda, then that's when you see, okay, this was a hidden motive. This was a hidden agenda. And, but God always shows us who people are. We just got to learn how to, begin to believe them when they show us.
Let me ask y'all this question. I'm going to take my glasses off of this one because I want to see some of the notes. I was in a session one day with a pastor. And the reason even this came up was because I was talking with a couple of pastors on yesterday and the day before, and they began to share things with me that they were going through. And I said, whatever you do, don't ignore the warning signs, was what I basically got. Because all of them said, because we do a lot of consulting with different leaders and pastors and people in business and stuff. And so I'm like, don't ignore the warning signs. Whether it's a business, a church, a ministry, whatever it is, don't ignore the warning signs. If you see it, then you have to address it. And if you don't address it, don't get mad when it doesn't do what you needed to do. And so, I was thinking the other day, we did a consultation with a church back in Florida. And when I was talking thank you for those that are sharing. It means so much. We really appreciate the fact that you guys are sharing. We were doing this consultation, and I had the leadership team around the table. And so as I had this leadership team around the table, I had the wife, I had the son sitting there, and the pastor. And I asked the question because the pastor was frustrated because the team wasn't owning the vision. And I asked the pastor the question, and then I asked the pastor's wife. How does it make you feel when you see how people treat your husband and when your husband is disrespected? And then I asked the pastor's children, how does it make you feel seeing your father work his hands to the bone, sometimes be gone working a job, then go to church if he's got the two jobs? Then sometimes what is it like when you work as the pastor and you have a vision, but people won't own it because people are very divisive? Answer the question of how that makes you feel as a wife. How does it make you feel as a wife when you see your husband hurting and going through the different challenges of being a pastor, trying to be a father, trying to be a husband, and all those things, and you see the disappointment and the hurt? How does that make you feel? What do you deal with when you go through that?
I want to slap somebody in the face.
Yes.
You didn't just say what I think you said.
I want to slap somebody in the face. No, I'm just joking.
Hey,
No.
y'all get little. We finna pray over here, y'all. Hey, they hilarious.
The lioness comes out.
Yeah, because you want to be protective of your husband,
you want to be protective, and I think because we know our heart, I know his heart of really wanting to see people walk in purpose. And sometimes, again, just like God will show our husbands things that he won't show us, he will show the leader, the senior leader, things about that person, about where you are to go and the process. And sometimes we always think we're in a place that we're really not, most times, or not think that we're in a place where we really are, where we've really progressed, where we're really growing, and we don't necessarily see it. So as a leader, then he is able to see, no, God has elevated you. I see an elevation in your life. I see where you've grown, in this area, or I see where you need to improve. And sometimes we want to be promoted because we feel like we're already there. And the pastor said, if I promote you now, the enemy is going to kill you. He's going to kill what God started if you just wait just a little while longer. And that's where the challenge comes in, because it's something that they don't want to hear. They feel like they're already there. They've already arrived. They've done a certain thing, and they felt that it was a little successful. So that makes me an expert in that area, so I can go forth with it. And so the leader is saying, please don't do it now. Please don't do it. Sometimes we just have to give God 6 months. Sometimes we just have to surrender just a little while longer to get to that place that God has ordained us so that we can grow and flourish. And I think that for me is so disheartening, because we know the sacrifice. We know how we labor and labor and labor in prayer, labor before God to get the revelation of what he wants to reveal to the members, to, you know, the people that God has connected us to in our ministry. And so we know the sacrifice. We know the warfare that we have to fight just so that we can pray and stand in the gap on your behalf. And so when it comes to, and we understand how the enemy comes to deceive, when we see, because we can look in your eyes and see you've been deceived. Before you even open your mouth, we see the deception. And so as it's in your heart, so you begin to operate in it. And then it really causes, because there's always then, when you're deceived, there's always an uprising against leadership. There's always this this thing that takes place, and you can see it's a spirit of deception that comes. And so what happens is, in that whole process, then when you're deceived, you disconnect.
Yes.
Because if the enemy can ever cause you to doubt what God is saying through your leader, you will always disconnect from them.
Wow.
Always.
Good.
If the enemy can get you to doubt what your leader is saying and what your leader is doing, you will always disconnect from them. And when you disconnect from them, then you will cause you will get into a place where you become dishonorable.
Wow. What do you think about that? What do you guys think about that? How does it, sometimes you've had to see your husband be who he's supposed to be, and maybe we don't always do things right. We may make mistakes. But how do you feel walking beside him in some situations where you've seen him have to try to pioneer, the things that happen, as Paul said, without the church, within the church, the care of the churches, all those kind of processes? What is it like as a wife to have to endure and go through some of those processes?
It's extremely hard because I'm a big heart person. And so you hear the things, you see the things, but then you still have to go to church every Sunday and love on the same people that you know are not being loving.
Wow.
And that's really, really hard. It's forced me to pray more, worship more, read more, so that way when I do speak to them, I am genuine, and I'm genuinely still caring for them. Otherwise, a whole another person comes out, and it's just not a holy situation at all. And then me and my husband have a long talk after church about how I wasn't loving it. I had to fix my face. And so I just sit in the back of the church, and the face just gets me every Sunday. It just doesn't work. And so I found that I had to guard my heart so that I could help guard his heart. Because if I'm not 100%, when the hits do come, he's going to get flesh back instead of a spiritual covering of me guarding him as a wife. And so it forces me to stay where I need to be, which is on the ground in prayer, reading my word, constantly talking to God. Okay, Lord, yep, I'm seeing this. Nope, I'm not hungry enough today. Okay, remove this from me. Okay, I know I'm going to see them on Sunday. Give me a good word for them, Lord. Just a smile, something where I can really speak life to them. And I found that when God convicts me, when I feel like, oh, you know what, I'm holding a grudge towards them right now, he's like, face it right now. Go talk to them, apologize, really get it out in the open. And it's allowed for healing to happen, and for people to say, oh, it was just a misunderstanding, or I thought it was supposed to be this and it was really this, and then it allows us to come back together. But it requires me to be whole as a spiritual wife to him, and not someone that's just hurt and wounded, giving a wounded, hurt reaction to what's happening.
Wow, that's good. Now somebody asked a question. I'm gonna answer that question. Somebody asked the question, what if your leader likes you, but it's not really not for you? So that's another good question too, because I think that's important as well, because you don't want to be in a place where you're just tolerated and not celebrated or accepted, or your gifts are not cultivated, and you're in a place where you're not appreciated, you're not loved. And so you shouldn't sit in the church like that either, where you're in the church and they're not caring for you, they're not building you up, they're not strengthening you, they're not helping you to go to your next level and preparing you for your destiny either. That's not good either, you know. So I think that's important too, that you're in a place where, again, you are being built up and strengthened and being discipled and being prepared for your destiny work as well. So I am not one who quickly tells people to dislodge from the organization they're in, but you also have to look at whether or not you even really supposed to be there in the beginning. I think that's another major factor that we look at. And so somebody said they just left the church and found their tribe. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about people who are finding the place. Now, this doesn't apply to you, But I get nervous when people when they've left 10 churches
Yeah.
and never found a place. Because in it, you have to realize it's not really the church. Sometimes it's us.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens that we all, even as leaders, there are certain things that we have to go through in order to grow. These things come to mature us. And so if we keep trying to avoid the process, we're going to always run into ourselves.
Wow.
We're going to always
Because you can't run from yourself.
You can't run from yourself. And so the lesson that you didn't learn where you were is going to be the same lesson that you're going to have to go through where you're going. So either way, you're going to have to learn the lesson. You're going to have to pass the test. You're going to have to pass the test of offense. You're going to have to pass the test of dishonor. You're going to have to pass these tests because they come to mature us. Leaders are made and not born. Even though you may have intelligence, you may have been born with a certain amount of intelligence, but there are certain things that you can only learn through mistakes and through the process.
What do you think about as you... because you talked earlier about how sometimes you may be wonderfully spoken. Let me say it like that. What do you think about sometimes the process of, you love your husband. You really do. You love that man. I know, let me tell you something, Bishop, if that woman loves you. This woman loves you. Just like I know Brittany would get somebody about Jermaine.
What?
And I know, I won't even talk about my wife.
Don't make me take my earrings
Y'all
off.
supposed
My bad.
Oh, they already off. Oh, I'm ready.
The pastor wives. Don't y'all get nobody. Okay, I'm praying for them, y'all. Okay, now, what do you think about it? How does it affect you?
I just fight in the spirit. Just fight in the spirit.
Okay, thank the Lord. Praise the Lord. What do you think about that?
Well, I just in dealing with watching him hurt, when you know who your spouse is, when you know who they are, and you see them love so hard, you see them work so hard, you see them be loyal, it does bother you. It bothers you because I don't want to see him hurt, and it also takes you, if I've grown from responding to everything because my husband has helped me with that, because I am opinionated, but he taught me forever ago, Shalonda, ignorance deserves no response. And so that is my, if I don't learn anything else, I've learned that. And so even in watching him be hurt, I feel like I'm called to pray for him. And God has also given me in this season an understanding to how people work sometimes. Sometimes people can't have or profit from their relationship with the pastor or their leader because they don't know relationship, period. They're bad at relationships. They never sit down to say, how do I have healthy relationships? And that's in the corporate world, that's in the Christian world and everything. So my thing is that, I don't respond to the people who've hurt them, and the way I respond is in prayer and in, like Brittany said, just kind of staying before the Lord, and also looking at it as from another eye, as they're acting and behaving like this because they don't know loyalty, they don't know how to value relationships, they don't even know what a healthy relationship is because they've come from these other places of nobody. I feel like sometimes we lack in the church teaching people how to have healthy relationships with your leaders, and how to have a healthy relationship with your apostles, how to have a healthy relationship with the pastor's wife. We haven't taught them that, and so when they get in here and show out and hurt us, we're all hurt.
Yes.
We're all hurt. We're ready to put the dukes up. We're ready to fight. But in reality, have you taught them? They don't know what a healthy relationship
that is so true.
And then, even in being leaders, if we don't understand how to have a healthy and a normal relationship, how are we gonna go impart in how to love on somebody else when we argued all the way to church? Or how we're gonna go and help somebody else in their relationships, on the job or whatever. All the way to church. We argued and then got out and held hands and went in church. Walked in there and held hands.
Smile for the camera.
Yeah, for the camera.
And then fight all the way. Come on.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yes.
I think that's what we have to. We got to focus on that. Yes, we got to focus back on relationships.
So important and so true, because sometimes we don't realize the depth of someone's hurt when they come. And what happens sometimes unintentionally, they will set up the next leader for this
Yes.
whole thing.
Right.
They will unintentionally will set you up so they can say they were hurt again.
Yes.
Because they don't understand and they've never seen what healthy looks like.
Right.
And so any little thing can cause them, it's a trigger. It becomes a trigger to say, oh, it's just like it was before, because they've never learned how to address certain things.
Right.
You know, something you just said, I think stuck out to me, which was, I just
That's
told
right,
somebody
Pathenia.
that this morning.
Absolutely.
I was talking to another pastor's spiritual son. And let me say this, I'm very cautious about that. I'm very cautious about people that I call and ascribe the title, because I think it's been the spiritual father, spiritual son, spiritual mother, daughter. That stuff has been so abused in the church. It's terrible, because some of those things are not really authentic and genuine, where you can really, really call each other and you really have real relationship. And I think Pastor Jermaine talked about that, you know, you got to have genuine relationship, and that's what allows you to be able to deal with those hard situations. Because if you don't really have genuine relationship. And some stuff is just pseudo. It sounds good. You can take me to my next level. I can use your momentum or whatever the case may be, or we can use each other, but it's not really real, and there's really no. So that's why I think we have to really be few and far between how we ascribe those different titles to one another in those situations, you know. And so, you know, at any rate, I just think that's true. One of the things I was telling someone else is that when we look at things and deal with stuff, the book we were talking about, Crucial Confrontations and Crucial Conversations, is a really good book, because what it does is it helps us not to get on the offensive or the defensive when people are sharing what they're sharing. And because we're the leader, we can't get in our emotions and feel like, oh, you're not going, no. You know, sometimes, well, you know, I appreciate you sharing with me how you feel.
Right. Right.
I understand that you're hurting right now, because when people are hurting, they don't tell them what they're going to say or do. And so, so as leaders, we have to be able to look at that, analyze it, and then not take the defensive about it, but help them get to a place of healing and show them what healthy reactions really look like. In our initial phases, man, let me tell you something, I would get defensive quick. I mean, first year or two, I'm like, hold on, I'm just saying, what you know, what are we saying here? And then after a while, I learned, okay, that's not good leadership. I need to be compassionate and be able to understand when somebody is really hurting, when they're dysfunctional, when all they've ever seen is dysfunction, and they've come to a place where they're looking for something that's going to be functional, and for you to demonstrate how Christ would have dealt with it. And sometimes it's not going to feel good. Sometimes it's just going to be really challenging, because you're like, man, I felt some type of way when they said that. And when they did that.
And see, people don't realize how it makes you feel.
Right.
They only focus on how they feel. You know, and that's just human nature. That's human nature, because you really, most times people are going to focus on how they feel about a situation, not about how it makes the other person feel. You know, what they did, their action, their reaction, you know, things like that. So again, we continue to learn, we grow. As we grow, you know, we try to apply what we've learned. And so it's a process of learning. It's a process of learning from our mistakes.
That's good. Somebody said it's like the Tarzan mentality. Apes raised him to be who he became. Wow, that's good. You know, another thing I thought about that when I thought about what you were saying is that, you know, sometimes people have not really been loved too.
Right.
That's another major factor. People have never been loved. And so they're used to abuse. They're used to people reacting and rejecting them. And so they already, almost like you said, set themselves up for it. And so this is why we really have to love people into certain places, because if we don't, they'll never have experienced what real love is.
Right.
Y'all are women. Y'all deal with this, and women that have been in relationships where you've been abused. And so sometimes, we were even talking about a young lady the other day who had gotten, every relationship she got into, she almost expected the man to abuse her. She met a guy that didn't abuse her, and she was like, I don't even know how to be in this relationship because you won't abuse me. Isn't that amazing?
Married to the guy that wouldn't abuse her, and then chose a boyfriend that would abuse her.
Right.
Wow.
And so people are sometimes like that, where we've been through some of this stuff, and you know, even growing up, sometimes we've been in so many dysfunctional environments that when we see something, we don't even know how to receive love.
Right.
We just don't,
Right.
you know. And so those are things. You know, I really wanted to spend this time and really let them share their heartbeat, let them share their thoughts about some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier, that I talked about with some of the guys and some of the pastors on their side, because I think that it's so valuable for the women of God to be able to share their heart and share what you guys think, and even share just be real. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Just to be real, just to be honest, just to be transparent, you know, because sometimes people see y'all in the pulpit, they see you preach, they see you going through these other processes and ministering, but sometimes people don't really get to know who you really are, you know, and sometimes you can't. Right. But then I think there are times when there are people who have the same questions, and want to know, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this situation? How do I fix this situation? How do I navigate this process? And how do I really walk through it to become? So they ready to go to the store, y'all.
And can I share one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
And I was just going to say, even when you're loving someone, if their dysfunction has become their new normal, then that means you now have to love them patiently. I mean, every day we mess up, and so God loves us, and Jesus loves us patiently. He comes back over and over and over, and we have to do that with the people that's under us, because as they're learning to be loved, it's awkward to them. This is not normal. So it's going to take time for them to know that you're genuine, for them to really make that their new normal, and then act on it. You know, they're hearing it, they're receiving it, but hearing and doing is two different things, and it often takes a much longer process to get from hearing the Word of God and doing the Word of God. So receiving love and then walking in the love you're receiving. And so as we're loving on those people and as we're being those examples, we're using the whole discipleship method of, okay, you constantly love on them. There's not a timeline. As humans, we put a timeline on it. I've been loving you for 6 months, and you haven't shown me that you know how to be loved yet, and so I'm done with you. And sometimes it takes a little longer. And so that's not every situation, but a lot of times for someone that's been in an abusive relationship or someone that's been cheated on, you automatically go to your default of protecting yourself. And so to receive love sounds great, but it's not normal to you, and so it's not going to be just received easily. And so you have to continuously be patient with people, use wisdom and all of those things, but it just takes time. It's not an overnight process, just as God continues to work on us with things. If we have someone on assignment that we're there to love, know that it's going to be stages of this process before they are able to walk it out, and then love on other people.
You know, something that's interesting, when you said that, I thought about your relationship with Gio. Gio kicks, he screams, he uses the bathroom, he don't change himself, he keeps you up at night, he is irritable, he is cranky, and you may not get a real return on the investment of the love that you pour out to him. It may be 5 years, it may be 10 years, it may be 20 years before you get just a tangible deposit on even the financial piece. That's why some parents be like, now you 18, it's time for you to get up out of here. You need a job. You need to do something. But sometimes we look at it with saints differently. But the reality is that sometimes people come to us and they're babes in Christ, and they gotta be burped. They gotta get their pamper changed. Because spiritually they're a babe, and that's how they operate. It's not their fault. They just don't know some of this stuff, you know? And so it's so important for us to be able to be in a place where we're mature enough to handle them as an adult, to say, this is a babe, this is how this is character of babes, and then treat them accordingly, and not give them the responsibility to be an adult when they're really a baby. You know? And then get mad at them when they mess it up.
Right. So it's important for you to identify personally where they are, and not go on where they say they are.
That's good.
So,
well, let me ask, is there one more question? Any other question that you want to ask, that you can ask these amazing pastors' wives? Any other question that y'all want to ask? I am appreciative, first of all, for my wife, of course, and then I am always appreciative for Brittany and for Shalonda. They are amazing, and I really appreciate them. Of course, I appreciate their husbands. I appreciate Bishop and Jermaine and all that they all bring to the table, and everything you guys do. I mean, I really do. I really appreciate. The Starworths are not here. The Smiths are not here. The Keesenberries are not here. Denicia is sitting over on the side. She does not like to be on camera, and so I'm not. And then Jennifer's not here. There's a couple other sons and daughters. Reginald, they're kind of connecting with us, and a couple other people are connecting and having a relationship with us. So at any rate, I just really felt like I wanted to hear what you you guys had to say before y'all go to the store, because after y'all come back from the store, ain't no telling what time it's gonna be. And at any rate, so
whatever time dinner is, that's when we're coming back.
And you come back for the food. Y'all are funny. Y'all are hilarious. So
you know, and it's important too that you take the time, you know, even as leaders, you take the time to pour into yourself, to pour into your spouse, to get away. You have to realize that you can't solve everybody's problems. You can't correct everybody. You know, you've got to be who God has called you to be and be okay with that. Be okay. Everybody's not going to eat from your table. It's okay. You know, and so you've got to know that, but you have to take that time, you know, with all of us. We're in different stages of our ministry. We have different responsibilities in our home. My husband and I have, you know, a little bit more leniency, so that we can travel, but we have to take the time. We knew that it was valuable for us to come together and to be present together. I mean, there were certain things we could do over the phone, but we have to pour into each other. We still have date night. You know, we value that. We value our time together, and you know, take the time.
Yes.
Hey.
The raindrop is coming, and it's coming quickly.
Yeah.
So we're going to go in the house.
Yes.
Rain, go away, come back another day.
Yes. Rain will cause some ethnicities to run inside.
Look, they got to go. See y'all later. Listen, we love y'all.
We love y'all.
This is so funny.
We gotta go. Watch the replay if you missed anything.
I'm going to answer that question. They won't be gone too long. Not too many places to shop in Alexander City. That's so funny. But thank you, Barbara, for helping me out. You got my back, Barbara. Praise the Lord. So somebody asked the question, and we'll maybe cover that one later on tonight. Let me see. Somebody asked the question. Maybe we can cover that tonight on the inside. The question was, what is it that you like best about way your husband handles adversity? Challenge.
Wow.
So I think that's a good question.
Yes.
So we'll cover that one on the inside. We'll come back later. So y'all come back a little bit later, and we'll answer that question about what do they like most about the husbands and how they handle adversity. So we'll cover that one later. And then we'll also give y'all some announcements of some things that come up. Go to our website, register for the webinar that we got coming up. My wife is doing a Bold and Fearless intercession webinar.
Yes, definitely want you to be a part, and that's for any level of intercessor. Also, it's a great training tool for your intercessory prayer teams, whether you're just starting or you're well established. So we really want to get the information to you. So excited to have LaTanya Smith joining me, a wealth of information, and so we're really excited about that. So go to our website, www.LaJunandValora.com, to get registered, and also you'll find more information of what the course includes, and that's starting in March the 8th. And so please register, and we look forward to all going to the next level in our time of prayer and intercession and doing what God has called us to do.
Now let me say this too. There's another thing. March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we're going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina, doing one of our suddenly meetings.
Yes.
The McGimseys, Erica and Ryan and Erica McGimsey. Also, Tamara McNair Hicks is going to be there, and also G. Marie Carroll will be there as well as one of the speakers. So we're going to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. Really excited. We're getting the dates locked in for a meeting we're going to be doing here in Birmingham area, and then we have also a meeting we're going to be doing. We're going to do something really exciting and new.
Next week?
And we're going to be in Detroit next week. Yep, we'll be in Detroit doing some leadership training with the church there with Apostle Hogan and Ken Hogan and his wife, and so in their church and some other churches that are connected to them. Then we're going to be in Medina at a little bit closer to the end of the year. Again, we're going to be doing something. We're going to be announcing, and it's going to be amazing. We're really excited about some of the stuff that we're doing. That's what we were here planning. Somebody says, what about the DMV? We're working. Chicago, we're coming. Don't worry, we're coming. I promise you we're coming.
Wherever we go, we're taking you guys with us.
Yes.
So yes, you're going to be a part.
Well, thank the Lord. They heard the prayer and the rain stop.
Yes.
Let me take 2 seconds and let y'all answer that question. Can y'all tell me really quickly, what do you like about the way your husband handles adversity?
For me, I have really seen my husband grow in that area, because there were times where he felt, when he may have looked at a situation and he said, well, it'll work itself out. And so he realized that that was not the best option, because things don't always just work themselves out. We have to address it. So what my husband has learned to do, and we've spent a lot of money on taking classes and going back to school and all of those different things. So what he has learned to do is to address things quickly. When things arise, he does not wait. He does not say, you know what, I'm going to give it some time. No, he addresses it quickly, so that we can, he can come to a resolve. And when he goes in to address it, he's always looking at a win-win situation. He's not going in to try to destroy the other person, but he's always looking to see how we make this better. This is what happened. This is what I saw. This is what, occurred, and I want to address it so it doesn't escalate or gets worse. So that's one of the things, and one of the main thing that has really, I've seen such a change in our organization. I've seen a change in my husband's life. He's not as frustrated. He's not laying awake, tossing and turning about what's actually going on, but he addresses it quickly, he deals with it, and he quickly moves on.
Let me say something too that I learned the hard way, and I'm going to ask you guys that same question. I learned how I don't address things when I know that I may not be in the mindset or in the mood to deal with it. And sometimes I do have to take just a moment to get my heart right and my mind right, especially if it's sensitive. The other thing I learned is I don't deal with conflict when I'm tired. Because when I'm tired, I may not react the way that I should. It may be my flesh and not my spirit when you're tired. So never let somebody bait you into a conversation after you've ministered or after something like that. You got to allow that, those situations to be dealt with at other times. So, Brittany, what do you think?
I just love how he could take everyone around the table in the midst of the adversity and really see the heart behind the issue and then address it. And if he doesn't have an answer initially up front, he has mentors, and he's not afraid to get on the phone with someone and say, this is what we're facing. Let me get a thought over here and a thought over here. And he goes to God and he comes back together, and he never allowed the issue to remain on the table. Even if they leave that meeting and it's not resolved in that moment, there's another follow-up call, there's another follow-up email, there's another in-person one-on-one conversation. He really cares about the heart of people. He puts that before their role of serving. What is your heart doing? Are you good with your family? What's really the issue behind what you're voicing to me, so that way I can really correct not just what's happening on the surface, but get to the root, so that way it's not reduplicating itself. And he does it with ease. A lot of people, they're in a situation, they're stressed out, they're looking angry, and he will walk through the house, because he paces and walks when he's on the phone and going, and so he'll walk through the house and walk through the meeting, and he'll just calmly talk people through their issues, almost like a one-on-one coaching session, and we're in the room full of people, and by the end of it, everyone's like calm and normal and collective, and it's just amazing to me, because I don't have those gifts, and so I just love watching him in his element. That's just really be able to just smooth things over in an intelligent, strategic, direct way, so people know that he's serious, but it's not in a demeaning or a belittling tone. It's just very respectful and honorable, and really just caring about that individual or those individuals.
Wow, that's good. Right. What do you think?
I think the thing that I love about Maurice so much when he handles adversity is the humility. The humility. I love the humility that he comes with in his style of leadership. I'm going to help you, and then his love for people so much that I don't want to see you fail. I don't want you to fail at this, and I'm going to help you enough in love. And I think that is what I love about him, is just his humility and just the ability to communicate, to say, you know what, let's sit down, let's talk, let's have a one-on-one, or let's sit down as a group so we can see what the situation is, and if it's on me, it's on me. I'm sorry, if it's on you, let's get better, together. And I think that's what I love, because he is very humble, and God is increasing my humility, but he's very humble and loyal. He's very humble and loyal and loving, and knowing how to correct you in love, so that you leave the table feeling like, you know what, he did that in love, because he don't want me to fail.
See, that's why our husbands are friends.
Yes.
Right. Yes, that's
yes.
why, huh?
Yes.
Oh God. Let me say this. Can I tell you something? My wife was watching Bishop's face as you were saying that.
He was proud.
Because every man wants to have his wife tell him how amazing he is and build him up.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. She was watching that. He sit over there.
Like,
Hey, look, he grinning from ear to ear. Let me tell you something.
I thought I was
Like, oh yes. Hey, look, he was going in. He said yes.
And that's so important. That is so very that is so very important, women of God, to be able to ask God for the grace to build up your husband, to build up that leader, to encourage him, because it's so much necessary. Again, my husband says it all the time, that they carry more of a weight than we actually do. Yes. When it comes to the leadership of the organization, the ministry, they carry a heavier burden. And so we have to be able to discern where they are. One thing I really appreciative about my husband, he really communicates with me. He said, Valora, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. He lays it all down on the line. He doesn't, so I'm so appreciative to that. But then I have to be able to take that information and see how I can build him up. When he's saying, you know what, I can't do it today, I have to have the ability to tap into that and to intercede and to pray and to cast down those things and to release what it is that he needs in his life. If he's needing peace, if he's needing revelation, whatever that is. And we have to be able to fight for our leaders, for our husbands. We got to fight for them. Amen. Because there's a real devil out there, and he's coming to steal, kill, and to destroy. And he's not just worried about stealing, because I'm keeping harping on that. Stealing is low level. Yes. I mean, that's nothing. But see, the enemy is after legacy. He doesn't want his sons and his daughters in the natural or in the spirit. So that's what he's after. He's not just after the leader. He's not just after your husband. No, he's after the legacy, those that have been attached to him and called to him to serve and for him to build them up. And so we got a war like never before. And that's why you got to take this webinar, so you learn how to really war for leaders. Yes, for our leaders, and to shamar and to guard and to protect. Glory to God. And so this is what it is. And so God is calling all of us together. It's not just, we're not just here by happenstance. No, God is bringing people together for a strategic time. We've got to come and we got to learn how to war together. We can't allow the enemy to divide us, to bring division in our relationships. No, we got to come together and fight the real devil, the real enemy. Amen. And his name is Satan. And that's who he is. He comes to deceive and to divide and to disconnect us from purpose. But we've got to stay committed, and we got to stay steadfast, and we got to stay in the place that God has given us the grace for.
Wow.
Possible to give us the benediction.
Yes. Well, they get ready to go, and then they ready to eat too, y'all. And it feels good out here, but it's still, I know it's a little chilly.
It's nice.
But it's really nice, isn't it? It's nice. It's beautiful. We out here at, what is this, Lake who?
Lake Martin.
Lake Martin. In what part of this country is this again? Alexander City, yes, Alabama. Okay, good. And I didn't. Alabama. No, let's stop. I used to live in Phoenix City, because I didn't know that you were this close to Fort Benning.
Oh,
I didn't really know. Yeah, it was like 40 miles or 50 miles, something like that.
Okay.
I said, that was pretty cool. That was last night. You were just a little sleepy.
I'm so proud of my husband, y'all. He drove all the way from Tampa at night through the night, because he always go out at midnight.
Right, I'll be done at midnight.
And I usually drive from midnight to like 6.
Right.
But he took it all the way.
I wouldn't even let her drive.
All the way.
I had toothpicks under my eyes and toothpicks and hot sauce.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, toothpicks and hot sauce. I'm like, hey, brother, can I? So anyway, listen, love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for going to the website and checking out the different things. We just really set up our new website, and it's been,
I love it.
My wife likes the new website, LaJunandValora.com.
Yes.
Then give them your website for your church.
It is gndcc.org.
Greater New Destiny Christian Center.org, and that's in Pell City, Alabama.
Right.
And then give them your church information.
ConnectionChurch.org.
ConnectionChurch.org, and that's in Medina, Ohio. So if you're near Medina or Cleveland, make sure you go check them out. They're an amazing ministry team. If you're in Birmingham or anywhere near where you guys live in Pell City, Alabama, make sure you go check them out. I promise you that you will really, really be blessed. And for us, we live in Tampa, Florida, and we have Perfected Love International Fellowship, Tampa, Florida, and really excited
about. If you're anywhere near Tampa on Saturday, please connect with us. It is we're having a women's fellowship fellowship. Awesome time. Fearless Women Global is coming together. People are really coming literally from different places to be a part of this fellowship. Food, fun, fellowship, just an awesome time. And I'm really excited about that. So please go again to our website for more information. It is free. You can just come, but please let us know. Where our team is so excited to just love on you, to empower you, to see you fulfill the call of God that is on your life fearlessly. Amen. So we're going to be bold, we're going to be courageous, and we're going to be fearless.
Yes.
Amen.
Well, listen, we love you guys. We're getting out of here. We may come back later. We got some exciting stuff.
Thank you, Don.
That we even birthed while we're here. Since we've been here, we've had some really exciting stuff that we've been talking about. And I think that was the power of just not just being able to relax, but also being able to come together, collaborate, put our minds together, get our creative juices flowing. And so this has been amazing. It's really been amazing. And so, Bishop, you want to come say, Denise, you want to come say hello to him? She's like, no. She waving at y'all from the side. You want to say goodbye to him as we get ready to say goodbye one more time? Look at him.
Goodbye.
All right. Love you guys. Allison, we love you.
Love you,
Everybody
Allison.
loves Allison. And I think I also saw, who else did I see? I saw, there's Carlise. Yep. And so we love you, and we miss y'all, and Don, and so many. I know Carlise and Randall wanted to be here, and I know that, of course, Allison. But I'm so proud of her because she is in school, and I am so proud of her. And I know Apostle Tracy couldn't be there, so we're proud. And then I know LaTanya, and then I talked to Gerald last night, and they wanted to come, and a couple of other couples that are newly connecting in relationship wanted to be able to come, but just didn't have the time to take off work or whatever. So anyway, we love you guys. We will talk to you very soon, and we'll probably come back on 1 or 2 more times before the weekend is over. And we'll be back. Don't worry, we'll be back Saturday night, and we'll be back Sunday morning.
Yes.
I don't want people to think I ain't gonna be here, because sometimes if we're not back, folks.
Can I just do it? I did a challenge today on Facebook, just a challenge. If you could find like 3 people and let them know how much, identify one thing that you really appreciate about them, so that you can encourage them. The enemy is always trying to cause us not to believe who we really are. But if you could just remind at least 3 people of how valuable they are in your life, and at least one thing that you really appreciate about them.
Wow, that's good. All right. Carlise says stop by Jacksonville. Oh, God. All right. Well, we look for, somebody want to get blocked. Praise the Lord. Okay, there we go. Block ministry in effect. All right. Listen, we love you guys.
Love you guys.
We'll talk to you soon. There's our cousin, Alanda.
Yes.
And so we'll talk to you guys. And
Love you,
we bless
Alanda.
you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.